Thank you and welcome back. If you thought you had an amazing experience so far, you haven't met Jackie yet. Jackie is absolutely amazing. I mean, her strongest skill is storytelling. No one can tell a story like she does. And it's not an accident that her fun fact is, I need to read it, working on making a web comic that she's trying to get adapted into an anime on Netflix or Crunchyroll. Apparently is a space opera subgenre. There are lots of hurdles to overcome, and she's refining the style and working to identify what it takes to get it a webcomic turned into an anime. Uh, Jackie starts presenting, you see it from the first slides, is non-conventional, and you will be amazed about what she is going to present. No pressures, Jackie. And about her metric is UX quality score consistency across product releases. So it's all about measuring the consistency and the reliability of the UX quality before and after product is released. And now I disappear. The floor is yours, Jackie. Thank you so much. And
Thank you so
you.
much. Wonderful. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much. I am so thrilled and honored to be here. Welcome to my talk. We're going to talk about a recipe for change, the mother sauce of DesignOps success. Now, every single one of you here has a story. Mine, it began with a realization. One of the scariest moments in my life was the day the sky turned red. I woke up, it was dark, and a red haze blanketed the Californian sky. And to be honest, I was terrified. Even to this day, I wept. And I wept for our collective inaction. Sometimes there are signals that are strong enough to force us to reflect deeper. And that was my moment. And a few days later, the skies cleared and I had an idea. I remember reading about livestock emissions and how they outpace the total emissions of all transportation, cars, trains, planes, ships, not by a little, but a staggering 6 times over. And the act of a consumer eating a hamburger ultimately generates far more emissions for the economy than just what livestock physically emits. Staring at my burger, yes, I got it from McDonald's. Staring at the burger I was eating for lunch, and I realized I was tasting more than just beef, but also the weight of a complex chain of events that's stretched across our planet. An empowering thought surged through me. If a single choice I make about what I eat can have such a profound impact, then what if I made a conscious commitment? What if I decided that every day, through small, consistent actions, I can cast a vote for the environment, for our planet, and for our future? And what if I was audacious enough to inspire my family to follow me on a journey in eating less meat? Now, this idea of eating less meat comes with immense challenge. Imagine standing in Buenos Aires, where the air is filled with the irresistible aroma of asado. Now, despite my very French name, I'm actually Argentinian American. And what that means is that meat isn't just food, it's legacy. Every family gathering, every joyous occasion, it's there in the form of asado, milanesa, choripan, empanadas. These dishes, they're the fabric of our identity. So just imagine what it was like when I initially shared my feelings about eating more vegetables. I wouldn't call it necessarily an all-out war, but it did rattle my family to their core. And it wasn't pretty, folks. Getting my family members to even think about changing how they eat was met with despair, agony, confusion, anger, fear, amusement. It was a litany of emotion. For my family, meat wasn't just a dish, it was history. It was comfort. It was home. Meat was central to many of our stories. My favorite story is the one where my abuela spent the day making barbecue after the Loma Prieta earthquake in California. I was 1 year old at the time, and the story involves heroics from a barber saving my brother when he was getting his hair cut. The story involves my father driving as fast as he could from work to home to make sure everyone was okay. But my My grandmother cooking asado for the entire family. Building shattering earthquakes? No big deal. I have my barbecue ready to go. Come and eat. Let's go. Time to have barbecue. So here's the thing. Change doesn't begin with facts. It starts with feeling. So my first step was to pursue the problem space. I needed to listen and I needed to learn about my family in a way I hadn't really done before. Why was meat so meaningful, besides being very delicious? I learned my grandmother was an Argentinian chef with little to no education, and she literally fed her family with her craft. I learned my uncles and aunts, their ratatouille moments. Those were ones where they were transported to happy and safe, secure times when they ate their mother's empanadas. I learned that meat was the way it was done for generations. I thoughtfully analyzed our family culture, and I began this journey toward learning about the people whose minds I wanted to change. One of the things I really realized was I need to rally support. But before I did that, I wanted to dive into the problem space a little bit further and learn more about Argentinian veggie fusion dishes, or read about stories where other Argentinian families chose to eat more sustainably. And I came away with this framing. Instead of erasing our roots, why not take the approach of expanding the narrative? Instead of taking away, introduce vegetarian twists to our favorite meals. And this wasn't about leaving our legacy behind, but instead balancing respect for the past with a vision for a sustainable, vibrant future. Now, remember how I said I needed to rally people? Well, I have a sister, and I like to push her buttons. And I only approve of this approach if you have a trusted relationship with a sibling. Don't try this at work. I pushed my sister's competitive buttons, and I got her invested in creating veggie forward dishes. Maybe invested into more competitively invested. And I didn't anticipate this, but my sister got my auntie involved. I inadvertently rallied my sister and aunt, both kitchen maestros, capable of reshaping our favorite dishes. My sister, aunt, and I, we rallied together and we shared dishes amongst one another. We began to shape our dishes into more veggie forward options. And together, my sister and I would envision dishes that danced between heritage and innovation. We enjoyed our sibling rivalry. We had honor and pride in our new dishes we presented at holidays and amongst each other. I also realized that how I communicated was important. This needed to be a unique message for different members of my family. For my mother, eating less meat wasn't a story about the planet. It was instead about preserving the heartbeat of our family. Imagine a healthier dad, I'd say, connecting a plant-based diet to improved health. For my parents, my messaging wasn't about mere meals. It was about a love story that could endure. For my empanada adoring aunts and uncles, I stirred the pot of creativity. Meat, I showed them, was but one note in a symphony of flavors. They cast doubt, but they were delightfully surprised that what they ate was more veggie forward. They even asked for recipes. There's a Netflix show I actually watched and spent a lot of time enjoying. It's called Is It Cake? Where people make things that look like real objects, but it's really cake. My aunts and uncles, they couldn't believe it was veggies. Is it veggies? Yes, it was. It was that delicious, though. So there was momentum. We began to celebrate and embrace a balance of tradition with the newness of these veggie forward dishes. And this mission wasn't about broadcasting change, it was about rekindling flames heart by heart, making each one feel seen, heard, and cherished on our collective voyage toward transformation. But I know it sounds very like, oh, it's great. It was so simple. It wasn't simple. It was so hard. It was very hard. The story embellishes the joys of change, but it was often very difficult. We'd have stocks of grains, meat, cheeses, but veggies were sometimes nowhere to be found. I realized that I can support change by having the veggie ingredients readily available. The whole point was to make change easy. Don't make me think. Have it available. And there were some spectacular failures, but that's the beauty of it. There's a story to be told for failure. The family enjoys a laugh when I burned my broccoli and cheese empanadas into verifiable rocks. You throw it against the wall and make a dent. And my sister, despite being a kitchen genius, may have destroyed a dish or two as well. There were always a few family members that were openly resistant. In these cases, I transform my role into a nurturing mentor, ensuring every member of our family Felt their palate was acknowledged and their comfort with new dishes was considered. These late adopters on our culinary expedition, they weren't challenges. They were blessings in disguise. And their hesitation spotlighted the intricacies and subtleties that might have been missed in the initial fervor. Practicing patience, I celebrated the milestones. One of my aunts tweaked a meat-based recipe to include more veggies, and a younger cousin eagerly awaited a meatless meal session. And the sweetest reward, those who took their time adjusting often became the most enthusiastic chefs. Ultimately, we grew stronger. This was a testament that, with the right tools, unwavering belief, and a community of support, not only can we embrace change, but we can thrive within it. And to maintain change, it wasn't great that we just did it once or twice, but we had to maintain it. We had mini competitions, monthly family feasts that centered around veggies. We had fun with it, and it inspired momentum. And as soon as I knew it, the sun set on that 1 year mark of our journey. My mind traveled back to those blazing crimson skies in California. Those roaring fires may have been beyond my control, but they sparked a flame within me. Fiery resolve to catalyze a shift in the world around me. And through that vastness of our planet's challenges, they can feel overwhelming. I've come to realize that true change often begins with a single step, a single bite, a single choice. And it was through our culinary evolution that I and my family took that step, making ripples that reached beyond the dinner table. And that, my friends, is the essence of mindset management, the art and science of shifting hearts and minds and guiding people towards genuine transformation. Now, here's the framework I used. I call it a mother sauce because a mother sauce is a foundational sauce that serves as the base for a variety of derivative sauces. So that means that with this framework, while it's the foundation of change management, you can adapt it and use to any situation. What you want to do is pursue the problem. You want to rally and bring people together. You want to enlighten people. Why this change? Why now? You want to adapt into a flexible approach, champion, be that advocate for change, and scale and safeguard that change. Now, there's a lot of information here, and these slides will be made available to you. So I'll just give you the crux and the main focal point of these. When you pursue the problem, many methods you can take. But the main thing here is leaning into lean guerrilla user research methods, especially in the business setting. You want to use structured approaches to gather those insights that can set you up for better mindset management down the road. When you rally and bring people together, again, lots of methods, workshops, strategic communication, feedback loops, these all turn into certain activities. But it's imperative at this stage that you're building empathy for those affected by change and that they're brought along the journey. They understand you and trust you to move forward along with you. When you're enlightening people, why this change? Why now? Things are fine the way they are. Or it was painful, wasn't that painful? You want to make sure that in this enlightening stage, you are there to storytell, endorse, and have people join even further in your journey. You're communicating clearly, succinctly, understandably, and you have core to the message communications. When you adapt, you're implementing a flexible approach. This is where you have multiple pilot programs, iterative approaches, feedback repositories, and a few other methods as well and activities. Main thing here is when you're adapting, none is better than perfect. Don't get in your own way. Create a minimum viable change management plan and implement it. The best advice I've ever received. You've done all this work and research. Believe in yourself. Don't get in your own way of landing it. You're going to champion. So the train has gone, it's moving, you have that momentum, and now you're championing, you're continuing that momentum. You're storytelling, you're providing recognition, providing more empathy, and you're helping people along that change path. And then lastly, you're going to harbor, scale, and safeguard that change. You've done all this work to get people over the chasm. How do you maintain that change so that it's lasting? Now, clap, 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 there will always be resistance. There will always be resistance, and that's okay. Keep your ego in check and mind the people where they are. You want to meet them where they are. Resistance is based on many feelings, as we heard in that story. But you can always choose different applications and methods in order to help people cross that chasm. So in this last path and act of my talk, we're going to dive into a case study when I was at Electronic Arts. This is the psychology of mindset management. Now we're at the choose your own adventure portion of my talk. My favorite holiday is Halloween. We're going to practice the choose your own adventure portion. Staying in the theme of my favorite holiday, what team are you on? Team werewolf or vampire? Now I want you to light up the chat and choose. If you were on a team, would you be on a werewolf team, vampire team, or neither? Surprise me. Let's light up that chat. What do you guys have to say? Who's team werewolf, team vampire, or neither? Okay, we've got Jacob, love it, werewolf. All right. Patricia, she wants to be surprised. We got vampires, werewolf. All right, we're gonna go with werewolf. There you go. So thank you for doing this. We're gonna have a few more decisions that you're gonna make, and this is the choose your own adventure portion of my talk. So let's move on. Case study. Back in 2020, we sheltered in place. We all know that. Companies all around the world tried to figure out how do we work exclusively from home? I was working in the EAX organization at Electronic Arts when we shifted to a work from home model. After several months of learning how to work from home exclusively, the head of design approached me with a problem. We don't have time to do focused work. Spending so much time in meetings, we aren't getting work done. Hmm, okay, I hear you. We've lost so much time. We've lost the ability to collaborate in real life, so our reactions meet virtually. But now there's diminishing focus time as a result. And I started to think about how difficult it had been to schedule meetings, and we definitely had an operations problem on our hands. So, one of the big insights here that I want to take away is cognitive load, like a battery drain on a device when you're running an app. Mental energy is a key metric for design operations. You want to decrease the clutter, decrease that low impact work, and increase focus on high impact tasks. So, what was the experiment? The head of design and I worked together, and we concluded it'll be a 2-week experiment. 5 groups in our org, 400 people, Monday to Friday, and simply we had synchronous meeting time and then asynchronous focus time. You can design your own work schedule. And so for me, really excited, let's do this experiment. This is a lot of people though. Oh my gosh. But it sounds like a perfect opportunity for the preach framework. So let's do it. Step 1, we're going to pursue the problem space. Now, you're going to choose your option. How would you pursue the problem space? Would you start with interviews or would you start with a culture audit? Light up the chat. What would you do? All right, Patricia, we'll start with interviews. This is great. What else, folks? What else would you choose to do? Interviews. This is great. Okay, looks like we've got consensus. Okay, we're going to move forward with interviews. Let's do it. Let's learn about each group. So the head of design and I, we partnered together and we started talking to all of the groups and started to understand what was the lived experience for folks. And understanding these culture issues helped frame how change management would be approached. What did we learn? 7 out of 7 groups. I know we said that we would have 5, but 7 out of 7, there were 7 groups in total. They had these mystery meetings. Why am I here? What's going on? I joined this, but I'm not really sure why. Presenteeism. I have to be here because I feel like if I don't, people won't think I'm working or I'm not really invested. Unstructured meetings. I'm joining, but it's just not very a lot organized. I'm here, things aren't moving as efficiently as they could. So there was a clear problem. One of the things that we did was multiple things. So I won't talk about all of these, but I'll talk through the actual methods and activities I completed. I did interviews, I did surveys, I did a culture audit, and from that I found allies, talked to experts, involved in stakeholders, hunted for data sources, determined metrics, and so on and so forth. I went through all of these and really tried to understand the problem space. I think that's one of the most important things you could do in change management. Step 2, rally. We're going to bring people together now. How do we do that? For me, I wanted to centralize an efficient way to deliver information. I made a one-stop shop for comms, made a focus work experiment Slack channel. That's something that we use at EA. And I wanted some place where people could very quickly find information about the experiment. Yeah, I also met with a bunch of people, communicated synchronously and asynchronously to rally people to the idea of an experiment. I also wanted to spend a lot of time making sure that we run the experiment correctly. We're understanding what I was testing and how I'd measure change was really important. This was a 400 or 500 people experiment. So we needed to make sure that our plan was in place. Hypothesis, methodology, surveys, having an actual research plan was very important for me. And when I was rallying, there's a lot of things that I did, strategic communication, feedback loops, and from that, a multitude of activities as well. Now we're moving right along. Step 3, enlighten. So I've rallied the people, understand the problem space, but now why this? Why now? I thought it was really appropriate to socialize the experiment with a deck. This was deck culture, and it was appropriate for sharing knowledge in our org. I organized everything that I knew, and I shared what we were doing with the experiment and why now. I made sure all the documentation that I would refer to is in one place. So again, having that clear organization, don't let people think like don't make me think, just let me quickly go to complete the goal. So I had one place for everything. And I also provided a map for when you should have a meeting. Following this map was a way to say, hey, either do a meeting or don't do a meeting, but following these steps will get you to your eventual discussion. I use the Steve Krug principle of don't make me think. You've heard me talk about that a lot. What is that? If you haven't read the book, Steve Krug made a book called Don't Make Me Think. And really, to simplify it, excess effort deters users, frequent decisions cause fatigue, and clarity retains engagement. In most situations, you want to optimize this for every type of ops that you do. So you want to make sure you apply this to making it as simple as possible for people to cross the chasm of change. But we encountered resistance. So I started sharing this and enlightening people, hey, this is what we're doing. But there's skepticism about cutting meeting time. People are saying they need to meet to get work done. How would you manage resistance? Would you storytell or would you use influential endorsement? Let's light up the chat. And storytell or influential endorsement. Patricia would lean on storytelling. Thank you. We got a +1 for storytelling. We got endorsement. Okay. All right. Looks like storytelling is the way to go. So I wanted to craft a persuasive message based on what I was hearing. Let's craft a message based on the audience. Now, I like to think about techniques for persuasion in this kind of framework. You've got ethos, logos, and pathos. What would that look like for persuasive conversation? For ethos, as a team committed to excellence, it's our duty to adapt strategies that maximize our collective potential. You're talking about the credibility and ethics. For logos, logic and reason, research consistently shows dedicated focus time lessens context switching and improves productivity. For pathos, for the well-being of our team health, let's connect during meeting time and enjoy focus time in the afternoon. Multiple methods were used. And again, you can explore all the different methods used that we didn't talk about in this deck after the talk. But what I completed, I did the Don't Make Me Think documentation and comms, storytelling. I used influential endorsement. I also had comms channels. And from those, I had check-ins, I had allies share comms on my behalf, presented visions for change, and I had a centralized place for all documentation for questions and continuing information. Step 4, now we want to adapt a flexible approach. I think it's really important to walk a clear line between flexibility and structure, especially with change management. You want to be like maybe like a reed where you don't snap and break, but you also are flexible enough to move people. In this experiment, I made very clear one of the central core to message things that people took away was this is practice over process. Practice is flexible. It's using your best judgment over process, a rigid, structured way of doing things. Also created a workbook of tips, insights, and ideas to do the best work. So people were adapting to this change, learning alongside, and I wanted to give people again all the great research that was available at the moment into one place where they can learn how to do what, like when do you do a synchronous or asynchronous meeting? What does meeting hygiene look like? What do writing guidelines look like? How do you communicate with our different tool sets? I had one workbook so that people can refer back to during the experiment so that they can be successful. I also had an FAQs document collected through the change management journey, and that's where common questions would come up and it would be updated all at all times, not in other documents, but in one place, one FAQ to rule them all. And as questions came in and themes, there would be answers so that I can always point people to that resource. So lots of information. Some people had information overload. What would you do? Would you prioritize communications or would you have a schedule, a segmented and sequenced schedule of communications? Now, there's some nuance between the two of these options. Light up the chat. What way would you do it? Prioritizing communications or segmentation and sequencing of communications? Where do you land with that? Light up the chat. All right, prioritize communications from Nicola. Wonderful, wonderful. Patrizia, segment and sequence. George. All right, it looks like segment and sequence. So let's see what that looks like. So I wanted to prioritize order and sequence of communications to deliver them effectively. When I organized communications, I did a very high level. At the very beginning, your first week, you just need to know how do you actually participate in the experiment? What am I doing to be successful? And then start providing step-by-step light bites of digestible lessons. Then there's a measurement survey, kudos and recognition, and breaking it apart that way. We have covered a lot of things. I won't go over this in a lot of detail, but we had methods and activities, and I used all of these in order to move forward in that stage. Step 5, advocate for change. I had tips of the day. Again, that train was running. I wanted to give public kudos to folks embracing the experiment. I wanted to make sure people knew that they were being recognized for moving forward with this change. Lots of things that happened. Again, you can storytell, recognize, have consistent messaging, and these all lead to a lot of wonderful, wonderful activities that help people feel encouraged through that change. Last step, harbor, scale, and maintain. One of the key things from this case study was that, hey, you did this experiment. What actually happened? Well, I'll tell you what. Overwhelmingly positive data. People feel motivated. They were able to get work done without interruptions. All the qualitative and quantitative feedback that I got, Jira velocity, all of it was overwhelmingly positive. So I wanted to share that back to the org and celebrate the win. We did it. We went through all of these. Now, we blasted right through that. I want to be thoughtful about time. Share your opinions in the chat. How would you approach this last question? How would you approach maintaining momentum for change? What would you do? And this really is an open question that you're able to do. And thank you so much for the time. Heartfelt thank you. I really appreciate the time today. And I'll leave it to you, Patricia. Thank you so much.
Okay, that was awesome, Jackie. I mean, you never fail to disappoint when it comes to storytelling. And after the session, if you start reading the comments and the feedbacks, I mean, if you had any doubt about how your session has been received, you should have none. Everyone absolutely loved it. So I'm kind of going through the questions. So apart from Anna asking, where did you learn such a great storytelling? We have a question from Renee. How did you account for multiple time zones?
That's a great question. So one of the things that I did during the understanding the problem space was understanding, well, what were the actual geographic locations of our different offices and how would they be affected by change? What I completed was essentially a graph of every time zone and then where there would be overlap. It wasn't perfect. Some people had to work late nights or like later afternoons in order to hit those morning times for other people, but it really was taken with the spirit of experimentation. let's try it, see how it works, and then we'll take that and iteratively improve.
Awesome. We have Mariam saying, interesting that this fell on DesignOps as multiple teams were involved. In the company I worked out during COVID, a similar experiment was conducted by HR. So the question is, did you work with HR?
It's a great question. So we had an organization where design was one of the key leaders. So the head of design had a lot of influence, and he was somebody that recognized my ability to do operations and organize and schedule this level of work. So I think that's why he called on me in order to do it. I think it was really more of the specifics of the organization and the influence that the head of design had on our org in total. But to answer the question, I didn't work with HR. It was really internal to our org. HR was not involved.
Okay, fantastic. And, out of curiosity about the Peach framework, which is absolutely fantastic, what are the most challenging parts of implementing it? Where did you find the biggest issues when trying to implement it?
Yeah, I would say that I was a single design ops team of one at EA, and a lot of people knew of me, but they didn't work with me directly before. So this was my first time stepping into the foray of working with engineers and product managers because it was teams of it was 400 people. It wasn't just our 35 design group. So I think the challenge really was getting over the hurdle of people believing in the experiment when it was just me alone conveying that message. And really, I had to flex my muscle of different types of techniques for what was persuasive. Mostly, it was a problem of who is my audience and what do they care about? Because I didn't really have that relationship before. But what I did was lean on the designers that did know members of those audiences, and I asked them what would be the best way to communicate this information. So really just using all the tendrils that I had to get information and provide.
Okay, fantastic. We have someone asking, I think you already answered, if you implement this all by yourself or did you have a team?
It was just me. Yeah, it was just me. Yeah. 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 There was a lot fell on my shoulders in a good way. It was a wonderful challenge, and I'm somebody very experimentation UXR minded. So it was something that was a labor of love.
Yeah, no, I remember that time we were chatting sometimes because I remember your presentation
Yeah.
about being a design ops team of one, which is a
Yeah.
situation a lot of us find themselves. So just trying to see, yeah, I mean, you know what? The chat is flooded with compliments, more
Thank you
than
so much,
questions.
everybody. I
So my
appreciate you.
struggle is to make sure I'm not missing anyone, and everyone is absolutely adoring your storytelling, etc. So how much of this storytelling do you apply in your daily job?
I am flexing that muscle more. I think it all comes down to the audience. Some audience members I'm finding are um, really believe and understand the storytelling, whereas others are more data minded. Get me more to the quant. It's really again knowing your audience, but I think storytelling for me has worked really well for developing an AI in quality, and I'm building support and rallying support right now for something in that space. Um, in order for me to share the vision, it's not like, hey, we all know quality is a problem, but how do I share the vision moving forward? That to me is where storytelling's really been the most impactful. And with the use of like stable diffusion and text to image, it's been really easy in order to kind of build and frame um, comics or stories in a deck format to share your vision.
Absolutely. There's one more question. How did you ultimately roll this out after the experiment? So what happened after?
That's a great question. So I actually was hired by Roblox, so I left EA. But what I did do is I essentially created a don't make me think packet for two invested project managers that saw the success and structure of what I completed. And effectively, I gave them the template for, hey, the whole idea here is that the experiment was 2 weeks. Now we're going to try it for the summer, 3 months. Let's try it and then see if we have the same results. And so it was a cross-sectional survey, longitudinal over nature, and one of those things that I've actually checked in with them to see like how it went. And I'm actually waiting. I sent him a message a few days ago. I'm waiting to hear back on how it went.
Okay, fantastic. And we have someone asking, can you talk a bit more about empathy map?
Yes, absolutely. So empathy mapping is one of the activities that you can do as an actual designer. That's one of those things where you have interviews or surveys or you talk to people. Really, it's just a way for you to kind of build a way to map what are your audiences thinking, feeling, seeing, doing when it comes to their lived experience and what it is that you're trying to change. So really, when I think about empathy mapping, it's a way for me to continue looking back at, hey, these are people. These aren't cogs in a machine. These are people that I'm working with. And that's why there's really great design operations and change management happens from the empathetic standpoint, the human standpoint. That's why I have such a wonderful reputation because I don't let people stray on the journey. I really am kind of shepherding people along that chasm over change.
That's fantastic. Okay, so I don't. Okay, I have to ask this. And when you embark on the Preach framework, do you tackle one project at a time, or do you have a multiple balls project rolling?
Yeah. It all depends on like the level. Like I usually do the entire preach framework, but how invested I am is based on severity, level of impact, visibility of project. The more complicated the project, the more invested I am in using all of the methods and activities for preach. Um, but to be honest, I use it for every project that I have, not just one or two. And right now I have probably like 6 or 7 like like some like slow burning projects, but some projects that are more immediate future. And so at the end of the day, really, it's how can you provide a human approach towards progress? And that really is the point of my talk.
That's absolutely awesome, Jackie. So I think we can let you go and we can stop here. Although make sure you read all the compliments. That was
Thank
absolutely
you.
fantastic. So now we have a little bit of a break, 10 minutes, and then we have a panel. Because we've been talking about change management, we've been talking about having an impact, measuring the impact, and bringing the design led mindset, and making sure we know how to take care of ourselves as design operations. But we need to look forward. What is happening with all the hype around artificial intelligence and design operations? So we have a panel of 6 very diverse design ops practitioners and leaders that will take us through a co-creation discussion where we will be all taking part to the panel. So get your FigJam board ready. There will be a FigJam. Everyone will be able to join, contribute, and build together what are the synergies and the opportunities that artificial intelligence is bringing to design operations. So see you in a few minutes. You know the drill. It's in the other room. And thank you again, Jackie, because that's been fabulous. And thank you.
Thank you for having me. I was honored. Thank you, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.